So the store was hit about 2 hours ago. They took mostly tablets, laptops, and cameras.
Sorry.
Welcome back to Director's Choice. Brooklyn Nine-Nine is a sitcom about the New York City Police Department's fictional 99th Precinct that's located in Brooklyn. Thus the name, Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
What the hell's going on around here?
Fire extinguisher roller chair derby?
Okay.
The show is full of many colorful characters, like Amy Santiago, Rosa Diaz, Raymond Holt, and one of the main protagonists, Detective Jake Peralta. But what makes Peralta so great? Is it his charming personality or his wit? Is there more to it? Let's find out.
I think you're kind of overdoing it with the manscaping.
Jake was born in 1981 in New York City to his parents Roger and Karen Peralta. When Jake was only 7, his father left him and his mother with no real explanation. This came as a surprise to young Jake, as his father seemed very involved in his life until this point. He coached his Little League team, and the two had the tradition of getting pizza with the team after every game. Seems like the typical wholesome family activity. When he was 13, Jake would experience heartbreak of a new kind. He invited his crush, Jenny Gildenhorn, to his bar mitzvah. There, she would break up with him to go out with Eddie Fung. After college, he joined the police academy where he graduated and was assigned to the 99th Precinct. He's been working there for 8 years at the start of the first season. He enjoys his job, both during his time under Captain McGinley and then under Captain Raymond Holt, even though he shows some disdain for the new captain at first.
Permission to take a selfie of the two of us, sir?
Permission denied.
Too late.
That was a good one.
The most obvious of Jake Peralta's many psychological sides is the fact that he has some father issues. There's even a part in this series where Jake rejects this idea in a way that makes it obvious that he and others around him know. He sarcastically states, "Oh yeah, the guy without a daddy is the guy with daddy issues. Explain that logic." Well, Jake, we will.
Look, I don't talk about this a lot, but I actually have had a difficult relationship with one of my parents.
Yeah, it's your father. You talk about it obsessively.
Wow, I would say obsessively. I mean, sure, there are times where I wish he was there for me more.
This is most definitely because of his father Roger leaving him at such a young age with little to no understanding of why.
God, my dad is the worst.
As with most children in this type of position, Jake may have taken it unconsciously that his father leaving was his fault. Since then, he's acted like a rebellious teenager until finally getting some parental backlash from a very unsuspected person.
Oh. Yeah, sorry, just said you're proud of me. That's my tear trigger.
That person would be Captain Raymond Holt, who Jake sees as possibly the only real father figure in his life. This leads to the next bigger point. You don't have to look very hard to see that Jake is more childish than the average adult, but what might go under surface level is his rebellious spirit against father figures in his life. We'll be looking at one of the biggest father figures to Jake throughout the entire show, Captain Raymond Holt. From their very first meeting, Captain Holt challenges Jake. Jake is making fun of who the new captain might potentially be when Holt walks in. In front of everyone, he makes Jake finish his now awkward joke before demanding that he wear a necktie the next time he sees him.
Meet more Tharp robot.
That's a terrible robot voice.
Yep.
We see this chemistry continue through a lot of season 1 until Jake accidentally calls Holt dad in passing, causing the precinct to come to a grinding halt.
Do you see me as a father figure, Peralta?
No. If anything, I see you as a bother figure because you're always bothering me.
That being said, when Holt teases him about it and asks if he'd like to talk over his feelings during a game of catch, Jake doesn't decline him. In later seasons, Jake even outwardly calls Holt his father, although most of the time in jest. Holt also returns this notion, calling Peralta son. Wholesome. Repeated abandonment is probably the biggest issue fueling Jake Peralta's psychological outlook. Despite having several friends, a girlfriend and soon-to-be wife,
To get restraining orders.
Amy Santiago, I would marry you anytime, any place. I would marry you in the steaming filth of the Gowanus Canal.
Sweet.
and father figures that have time and time again proved that they aren't going anywhere, Jake still suffers from abandonment. Once again, caused by his father leaving him at such a young age, Jake is unable to overlook any time someone leaves out of his life for good or even for a short while. In fact, we see it 3 major times throughout the show. Let's dive into each one. The first one is, of course, Roger leaving young Jake alone when he was just 7. This is the trigger that snapped a chain reaction in Jake's life, making it hard to take rejection well. This would eventually create a fear in Peralta that he would see affirmed time and time again by other people in his life. We discussed how Jenny was briefly Jake's girlfriend before dumping him to date another boy. Jake's abandonment issues kicked in, and to some extent, he placed a lot of the same hope he had in his father coming back into Jenny taking him back as well. This went on into his adult years, where he was finally able to let go of the notion that she might eventually have him back. The last one is one that you might not have realized right away, but is one we see time and time again. That would be the Pontiac bandit, Doug Judy. This may seem a tad bizarre at first, but really think about it. Jake and Doug really hit it off, becoming immature best friends in no time.
So I wake in the morning and I step outside and
This is to avoid being in trouble with the law, but Jake most likely sees it as a personal attack by another important person in his life. After all, his father and Jenny both connected well with him, only to leave a short time after. So why shouldn't Doug be any different? It's possible that Jake is mentally okay with this, unconsciously seeing it as a way to punish himself, or in the very least a way to repeat the psychological trauma that he's gone through. This would be referred to as self-sabotage, and is very common in people who are attempting to cope with their past. For Jake, this may come in the form of always accepting Doug back, as it's a way he can cope with his father, who he feels will never come back into his life. This is later addressed and fixed in Season 4, when Doug doesn't abandon him immediately after helping to catch his brother George. Jake gives him full immunity for his past crimes, and from there, he turns his life around.
it's this kind of bickering that makes us such an adorable couple.
Whatever, Judy. You're under arrest.
You can't arrest me, boo. We're in international waters.
The two become even closer and are inseparable friends. Jake and Doug become best friends, but it becomes clear in Season 7 that this thought of abandonment is still around. When Doug gets engaged, Jake is immediately concerned that he didn't get invited to the wedding. This shows that even with closure, this wound hasn't fully healed, and unfortunately, there's a good chance that it never will. Jake Peralta is funny, smart, and despite having many issues, a good person. He has seen the worst of the world and has still remained good and optimistic. This is a feat among itself, but shouldn't be the only takeaway when we look at Detective Peralta. He has learned to overcome many of his issues with the help of friends and colleagues to help better himself, and that's one of the strongest things anyone can do. That's all for today. Thanks for joining us on this psychological breakdown of Detective Jake Peralta. Do you think he'll be able to overcome more of his issues in the future? Leave a comment below and let us know. Take a look at this other recent clip by Director's Choice, and make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified with our latest videos.